Well, folks, we have a lady by the name of Susan Smith on our Beat Diabetes channel today, and we're so happy to have Susan. She has a powerful story to share. Susan, welcome to Beat Diabetes.
Thank you, Dennis. It's a pleasure and an honor to be here.
Well, we are so happy to have you. And you have gone through some pretty significant diabetes. You live in Texas, is that right?
Yes, sir.
You're a fellow Texan, so thank God for Texas. Tell us about your story, Susan. I imagine, like most people, you never thought you would have diabetes, and suddenly you get blindsided. Tell us how it all started for you.
So, how it started was, I'm one of those people who just avoid going to doctors. And, as a mistake as it is, it's one of those, well, if I don't know about it, it's not really there. And so it probably had been about 10 years since I had last been to a doctor, and I was having some problems in my abdomen, which I suspected to be my gallbladder. And even then, I was trying to avoid going to the doctor, but my husband was like, no, Susan, you need to go and get this checked out. I said, okay. Well, because I hadn't been to a doctor in so long and I had changed states, I had to establish care with a new doctor. A whole lab, blood work to come up. And being overweight, I did expect a talk with the doctor about, losing weight and, the typical standard things. But otherwise, I felt fine. And so I went to the doctor, and she did the lab work on me, and I got the lab work back in my patient portal before she even called. And I was curious and looked at it, and I don't know why, because I don't know how to read blood work, but I was looking at it, and I saw the word glucose, and it said 356, and it was labeled high. Now, I wasn't sure how high that really was or what glucose really was. But then a little bit further down, I saw A1c, and it said 12.6, and it was flagged as high. And A1c sounded really familiar to me, and I think it's because my mom is type 2, and she had mentioned the term A1c before. And so somehow I just kind of knew that that was diabetes related. And I thought, oh, dear Lord, I'm diabetic. She's going to tell me I'm diabetic. Of course, I don't know how extremely diabetic I actually am, but it was a moment in my life that really terrified me, because my dad was type 1, and I had watched him die to complications of diabetes. And so I kind of know what diabetes will do to you when it's not under control. And so fear set in. My doctor calls me, and she's like, well, I just want you to know you are diabetic, and I'm going to put you on one pill of metformin a day, and in 3 months we'll test you again and see how much more I need to put you on. And I was like, well, wait, what do I eat? I didn't know how to take care of myself at all. I knew I couldn't have sugar. That's all I knew. And she said, and these are her words, Mr. Dennis, exact words, well, you eat all the carbs that you want, just make sure that they are the good carbs and not the bad carbs. And Mr. Dennis, I didn't know much about it, but something didn't sit right with me when she said, eat all the carbs that you want. And I don't know why it didn't sit right with me. It just didn't. And I said, well, okay, but what's good carbs and what's bad carbs? And of course, she went into the whole thing about, well, instead of a white potato, you eat a sweet potato, or instead of white rice, you eat brown rice, and just make better decisions and try the Mediterranean diet. Well, okay, so we got the phone, and that was that. And I had to really reevaluate my life at that point, and come to the realization that I hadn't took care of myself. And I had to actually ask God to forgive me for that. I've always believed that we should be a good steward of everything that God gives us, including our bodies, and I wasn't doing that. So I asked him to forgive me for that. And while I have his forgiveness, it doesn't mean I escape the consequences of my actions. And in this case, it means health, health issues. And I asked God if in his mercy, he would restore my health to me. But either way, whatever his answer was from that day forward, I was going to take good care of myself the best I know how. But then I had to ask God for wisdom, because I had no clue how to do it. And so I asked God for wisdom, and off to YouTube University I went. And Mr. Dennis, the first video I came across was a doctor. I think his name was Dr. Bernard. Anyways, his whole thing was, you had to be vegan, no animal product, and that was the only way to reverse diabetes. And that didn't sit right with me. I wasn't at peace with that. So I didn't finish watching that video. The second video I came across was by a lady named Sarah Halbert. And the title of that video was, to reverse diabetes, you must first go against the guidelines. That's a paraphrase. And it's kind of funny here in a second, I'll get back to that. But I thought that was a gimmick. It sounded so gimmicky. And so I was like, I'm not listening to that video. And I skipped that video. I didn't even give it a chance. And the third one was your channel, Beat Diabetes. And I thought, I studied your thumbnail and I was like, well, he don't look like he's scammy or trying to sell me something. So I clicked on your video. And as I'm watching you, I am at peace watching your videos. And I think it also helped because you were talking about the importance of checking our blood sugar and how to check our blood sugar. And you was testing your blood sugar with different things that you ate and showing us what it does to you and how you can determine if it's good for you or not. You were backing up what you were saying on your video, and you wasn't trying to sell me some product. So I was at peace watching your video, and then I saw your challenge, your Christmas challenge of 2022, and it was free to join. I thought, well, I don't have nothing else to lose. Let me try it. And I tell you what, I've followed your videos and listened to every word you said. I did it very strictly. And in 3 months, in December, when I got retested, my A1c had went from a 12.6 to a 4.9. I was floored in a good way. I couldn't believe it.
Well, let me just say this. I get a lot of testimonies, but that's one of the most dramatic progress that I've ever heard. 3 months. Number one, that's a short period of time. I know you can make progress, but 12.6 to 4, did you say 4.6?
4.9.
4.9. So that's like over 7 points in 3 months. I mean, that's just crazy yes. Good. Yes. And you weren't expecting it. Had you asked me, of course, I don't give advice. I don't hardly say anything to people individually. But if you were a neighbor and a friend and said, well, what do you think my chances are? I'd say, well, you were at 12. Let's hope you can get down into the 7s or maybe the upper 6s. But man, that is just fantastic. So at this point, Susan, people are wanting to know what in the world you did. I mean, yeah, you watched me, you took the challenge, but specifically, what changes did you make? What did you stop eating? What did you start eating? Tell us more specifically what you did to achieve this tremendous victory and progress in your short 3 months.
I'll tell you what, it was eliminating the carbs and the sugar. I definitely quit eating all the pizza I was eating. And I hate cooking, okay? And anything to make my life simpler, I'm all about it. So, me and my husband, we'd often order out, and anything that was just simple was how I ate. So I had to quit doing all that. I just went to vegetables and meat, and I did use some substitution recipes to kind of help fight off the cravings, so to speak. Like I used almond flour to make almond flour biscuits. So that really helped me get through Thanksgiving last year. Of course, I don't have these cravings anymore, but that's what I did. And really, I brought down my total carbs. I didn't go by net carbs. I went by total carbs. And I kept it under 20 grams a day.
So that was pretty serious. How did you have that kind of motivation? What motivated you so much? Very few people can do that, especially cold turkey. Some people can work their way up to it over a course of some years, but I mean, you did it overnight pretty much.
I have an understanding that I am a special case in that regard because I will tell you, I'm a carb sugar addict. And fear is what really made me stick to it. And that's because I watched my dad deteriorate. He died at the age of 33. I was 13. And the last few years of his life, he wasn't suicidal, don't get me wrong, but he longed for death. He was tired of being in pain and agony. And
what kind of pains did he have?
So he had renal failure. He was legally blind. And, I used to think he was a preacher, okay, and he always believed that we have an appointment with death with God, okay, and when that time comes, there's nothing we can do or say to keep us here, okay. Because he believed that, I always thought he just didn't care what he ate or drank, and because he didn't believe that anything he could do could keep him here longer. After learning what I have learned and looking back, I've come to realize he just didn't have the education, to the knowledge to take care of himself. And I don't think he was properly giving himself insulin. He was type 1. Because I remember as a kid, him making comments, well, my blood sugar is high because I don't feel right when it's when it's in normal range, which meant nothing to me as a kid. It was just a passing thing I would hear. Of course, now it means everything to me because I actually understand what he's talking about. When my blood sugar started coming back in that normal range, I thought I was going to hypo, and I had to check my blood sugar, and it was fine. It was 88. It was because my body was so used to having elevated blood sugar. It took some time for it to readjust.
Exactly.
My dad didn't understand that, and so he kept it high, and it ultimately killed him. And I don't think he realized all the Mountain Dews that he drank and the foods that he ate, just how bad they really was and how it was really destroying him. And so, but watching that, that's why I had so much fear when I was diagnosed. And that's what really, I just did a whole 360 turnaround.
Well, it sure sounds like you did. And, you mentioned you were overweight, which usually when you're overweight, it means you really enjoy eating. And that usually means you enjoy a lot of carbs, a lot of potatoes in their various farms, and mac and cheese and desserts and all of that. Did you have withdrawal pains, or did you suffer and say, oh, me, or did you just like, I'm going to do this? What was your mental state during that changeover?
To be honest, I don't remember, pining so much for it. There was some times I wished, I could indulge in that. I can't say I was without complete cravings, but I can't explain it. That fear, that it overrid everything. And it's almost a blessing that I had that fear. Fear is not a good thing to live in, but it's almost a blessing, because I know that people struggle with those cravings. That's one of the hardest things for them to get past. And I just didn't have that.
Yeah, that is awesome. So tell us about now, well, first of all, let's go to this. You took the fall challenge, the Christmas challenge of 2022 a year ago. So by Christmas of last year, by the end of December, you were in the 4s.
Yes.
How has it been? That's been a year ago. So How have you been doing since then?
Well, Dennis, I was so excited for that change. I actually, the YouTube algorithm, I was starting to get like channels that talked about carnivore and this triple B and E and the lion diet, and I wasn't sure what that was all about. And I started watching videos on that, and I thought, well, I've come this far. Let's see how much more I can improve. And so I transitioned to carnivore in January. I thought, well, let's try it, And my insurance changed, so I had to get a new doctor, insurance reasons, and finally got to see my new doctor in July when I established care with that one. So therefore, a new lab work came out, which is fine because I was hoping for that anyway. So that's basically the 1-year mark. And my A1c then went from a 4.9 to a 4.5 with an average glucose of 82.
That was when now?
That was in July.
July of this year.
Yes.
And that was the last A1c you had?
Yes, that's the last A1c checkup I took. And my new doctor, I let him know that my A1c, that last August was 12.6. And he looked at me and he was very serious. He said, I wonder if you're really diabetic. He couldn't believe it. He actually asked me, well, what are you eating? I said, well, meat.
Yeah. So you're still carnivore at this point?
Yes, I am. I enjoy it.
Uh-huh. So are you pure carnivore or mostly carnivore, all carnivore?
I am 98% carnivore. Occasionally I will have some vegetables, and it's not that I'm against vegetables. Please don't misunderstand that. I just enjoy I just enjoy the simplicity of carnivore. I eat my hamburger patties, my eggs, and occasional ribeye, and I'm good. I know that's not for everybody, though.
Right. But during the 3 months of the challenge, you weren't doing carnivore. You were basically just low carb. And were you testing your blood sugar much? Were you using what we call Mike the meter?
Yes, sir. Let me tell you, Mr. Dennis, I know you're not a doctor, but you were essentially my doctor, because my doctor did not tell me to check my blood sugar. She didn't teach me how to check my blood sugar even. You're the one who taught me to check my blood sugar, why I should check my blood sugar, and how to check my blood sugar. You are the one who taught me that. And I did so. And I mean, I don't know if you know those ice sparkling waters, but the bottle's probably about, I don't know if you can see my hands right, but they're pretty tall, about a 20-ounce bottle of that. I would, stick my hand, my blood sugar, or take my blood sugar and put the used needle in there and fill it up and throw it away. And I went through about 2 of those bottles in a couple of months, because I was checking it all the time. I was also curious. I was learning, and I was doing just like you said. Every time you eat something new, you got to see how you react to it. Okay, take my blood sugar before I eat the meal, check it, 30, then an hour, and then 2 hours after to see where I'm at, and to see the effect on it. And I took it almost religiously, I don't take it as often anymore, because I don't really have a need to with what I eat. I know I'm not spiking myself. But very important. And that's what I did do. And I followed you to a T.
Well, you certainly got the results, and
Yes.
You are an exceptional case. The only thing I need to say to the people watching and listening is, you're not all going to get the results Susan did. In terms of the speed of it, I believe everybody pretty much can get good results. But to do that in 3 months like you did, just amazing. Nevertheless, some will and some have gotten almost that good. I mean, you're kind of like the poster child for this challenge, this diabetes challenge. I mean, it hardly gets any better than that. 12.6 is terrible. 4.9 is wonderful. And now you're down to like 4.5. What I would say is, Susan, you've got the blood glucose of a teenager. I mean, there are probably 16-year-old slim teenagers that aren't much better than what you are right now.
Yeah.
And so you have learned a terrible lesson, a tremendous lesson, I should say. Do you suppose you'll have any trouble keeping low carb and or carnivore the rest of your days? I mean, you're not that old. You could live quite a few decades yet. Think you're going to have any trouble or fall into the old ways?
No, this is definitely a lifestyle for me, especially when I did give a vow to God. So I want to keep that, so I won't be going back. And why should I? It was poison to me. I was poisoning myself. So I won't be going back to the old lifestyle I had.
Yeah. Well, that is just wonderful. So what does a day's worth of eating look like for you now? You're carnivore, so obviously you're not eating a lot of vegetables and salads. But is it just pure steaks and hamburger patties, or what do you eat on this carnivore diet?
I wish it was steaks every day, but my budget doesn't allow that. But I do have steaks sometimes. Usually it is standard. I usually just cook a batch of hamburger patties at the beginning of the week, and I eat on the hamburger patties, and I fry me some eggs, and that's what I eat all week long. And then, of course, the occasional ribeye in there. I understand not everybody's going to be happy with that. They need a little variety in their life. So that's a special, I'm a one-off on that. I'm completely happy with that. My husband, on the other hand, he likes a little variety, so I cook him a little bit different stuff. But for me, I'm content with a hamburger patty and some eggs, and I just eat until I'm comfortably full. I don't worry about calories. I just eat until my body tells me I'm done, and I don't eat again until I'm hungry.
And do you worry that you're not getting enough vitamin C or this vitamin or that vitamin, or do you take supplements, or how do you handle the whole nutrition issue?
So I do take iodine supplement, because I do get the cheaper eggs instead of, so I'm not sure I'm getting enough iodine from the cheaper eggs that I get. I take that advice from another doctor, and not something I come up with on my own, because I'm not a doctor either. I do supplement with iodine to make sure I'm getting that. As far as the vitamin C goes, I don't supplement on that. I shouldn't have a need to, since ground beef has a lot of vitamin C in it. And I do supplement vitamin D to make sure I'm getting plenty of that, especially in the wintertime months when I'm not out in the sun as often. So that's the only thing I supplement. And I seem to be doing well so far.
Okay. Let's kind of close it up by just kind of going back and revisiting when the doctor first told you you were diabetic. You know, you've indicated there was a lot of fear. You thought about your dad, died at the age of 33. Of course, he was type 1, which is a whole nother beast. But you had a lot of fear. At some point over those next 3 months, as you transition from a A1c in the 12s to an A1c in the upper 4s, you must have got the feeling, you know what, I think this is working. How long did it take you to really start gaining confidence that I'm going the right way and this is working?
So, you know, I'm watching my blood sugar throughout that 3 months challenge. And I don't know what it was in August, because in August I wasn't checking it. I hadn't come across your channel till closer to September. Okay. So I don't know what it initially was looking like, but I can tell you that I remember watching my morning glucose, the dawn. I have a hard time saying that phenomenon word, but you know what I'm talking about.
Right.
So when I first started checking on that, you know, I was seeing like 120s in the morning. It didn't happen overnight. That morning time glucose did not come down overnight. It took the full 3 months for it to finally start getting consistently under 100. You know, but by the time I got my A1c retested, it was constantly in the low 90s, high 80s. Okay, and so it was a gradual. As time went on through that 3 month, I was like, this is working. And you gave a formula on how you can test you can determine your A1c. By adding, you know, all your blood sugar tests. I don't remember the formula, but you have
tested 5 different points during the day, and then you get an average, and then there's an online place where you can plug that in and convert your glucose into an A1c score. So you did that, and that kind of encouraged you, I guess, huh?
Oh, I did. I did it at the end of November. I went through my glucose monitor, and I wrote down every time I took my blood sugar, which was a lot, let me tell you. And I figured it all up, and I did my A1c, and I was like, okay, and on December 5th, she's going to test my A1c, but I just want to know what I should expect, you know, because I was thinking, well, maybe it'll at least be a 5.9, just under 6. You know, that's what I was hoping for. And it came out and it said 4.7. I was like, is my glucose monitor even accurate? I really was thinking that. I was like, it's probably not accurate. It's probably not. And the lab said it was 4.9. So it was only like a 0.2 difference there. So it was really accurate.
Yeah. Well, Susan, thank you so much for sharing your story. It's going to be encouraging, but let me just say to some of our folks, don't be discouraged by the fact that she did it in 3 months' time, and maybe you've been trying it for 6 months. You're still working your way down, but trust the process. It works. So thank you, Susan. We appreciate you, and God bless you.
Thank you, Mr. Dennis.